Now on to our next session. Taking programmatic buying operations in-house has been on the rise, and this trend has been witnessed not only by the data of IB Europe's annual Attitudes Towards Programmatic survey, but also by the panelists taking part in our next session. Ilona, from the Director of Client Services from the Trade Desk, will lead the next panel of experts into a discussion, to explore the in-housing trend. Hello, Ilona, are you on the line?
Hi, David. Thank you so much.
And another fantastic background, I must say.
Yes, I've heard that the weather in London today isn't great, so I thought I may as well put some sunny background. And also, I'm stuck in my in Poland at my parents' place. I wasn't able to go back to London after traveling, so I wanted to save you views of my childhood's bedroom, and thought I will put a background to cover that up.
You've certainly upstaged down your nap, but I'll hand over to you now for good luck with the next panel. Looking forward to listening to it.
Thank you so much, David. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. I believe this is the last session of today, and we do have a very exciting subject to go through, the in-housing of programmatic trading. And my name is Ilona Lubodziemska, and I work for the Trade Desk. I look after client services teams in the UK and France. And I'm absolutely honored to be joined today by the amazing panelists representing brands. We've got Vodafone Italy, we've got HelloFresh on the stage with us today. We also have agencies, we've got Mediacom and technology partner, we've got Xander with us as well. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the panelists' thoughts on in-housing programmatic trading and what they make of it. Because as David said, there has been a lot in the press over the past several months about in-housing and being more and more brands out there thinking and bringing programmatic buying into their organizations. Some of them, as we know, have done it successfully, Vodafone being one great example, and other brands perhaps struggled with that a little bit. And I would love to sort of understand panelists from the panelists today and hear their thoughts and perhaps also experiences on going through that process and experiencing some of that firsthand. Before we will start the discussion, I would love the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us about their roles, where they work, and perhaps where they are dialing in from today. Let's start with Stephanie, then Carlotta, and then we will go over to Oliver, Laird, and Tash.
Hi, everyone. Hello, how are you? I'm Carlotta Meneghini from Vodafone Italy. I'm responsible for all activities across products for Vodafone Italian market, and I'm responsible for Programmatic.
Stephanie?
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm dialing in from Hamburg. I work at Xander. Generally, we have a SSP, DSP, and at several for publishers. I work on the DSP team, and we're providing trading advisory help to our buy-side clients, mostly agencies, but also some direct marketers. And yeah, we're located here in beautiful Hamburg at the moment.
Welcome. Oliver.
Hello, I'm Oliver Gertz. I'm leading digital across EMEA for Mediacom, which is the biggest media agency in Europe. And I work with clients on evolving their digital capabilities and how that means evolving how they approach programmatic and take more control as part of that role.
Laird.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Lars Saliai. I work as Martech lead in Vodafone Italy. I work in the digital marketing team as my main roles are to work with different technological partner to onboard in the best way and use the technology that they offer in the best way for the Vodafone purposes or goals.
Thank you so much. And Tushar?
Hi, my name is Tushar. I'm responsible for all the global ads programmatically run via HelloFresh. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you so much for the introductions. Let's start perhaps with talking a little bit about in-housing itself and what does in-housing actually mean to you. And we do have, obviously, as I mentioned, Vodafone and HelloFresh on the line. And I think it will be amazing to understand how brands view in-housing and what in-housing means to them, whether there is one size fits all. Tash, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Programmatic in-house, it means to me, is like taking ownership of your data, technology contracts, media, and hello.
We still here?
Oh, sorry. Taking ownership of data, technology contracts, audience planning, algorithms, and analytics, and bending them to marketing ROIs and kind of looking towards, looking at the customer lifetime value. However, in market, in industry, there are three levels of intermediation available when brands are looking for in-house programmatic. So first one is like working with agency in an opt-in model or an opt-out model where the planning and sourcing of the technology has been provided by the agency, but in terms of data, it can still be lied with the advertiser itself. Second is when you can go via a reseller. Reseller is like something like Jellyfish, Mighty Hive, where they kind of outsource you the technology and also outsource you the talent, which can sit in your office, and it can be both like in terms of pay per hour or how you want to like how it works for your marketing team. And third is like direct, which I call it fully programmatic, where you take ownership of your contracts, operations, data, media, algorithm, and analytics.
Amazing. So it seems like there are multiple approaches that brand could take, sort of assessing in-housing programmatic. We also have on the line Laerte, who represents obviously Vodafone Italy, and Vodafone is one of those brands that have brought programmatic buying in-house successfully. It would be great, Laerte, if you could share with us what does in-housing mean to you.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. From Vodafone's point of view, the in-housing of programmatic and all the digital media buying take place through through a buying platform managed by campaign managers such as Google Ads, Facebook, DV360. For Vodafone was a step forward toward the digital transformation process. Everything started with a digital transformation process. The most important thing to underline is that it's not about just digital media or something related to marketing, but it was a change of mindset to embrace globally, that was embraced globally by top management that constantly followed the process of each country toward 100% of the in-housing. This in-housing process lead Vodafone to contract directly with the main technological partner, the tech partners, without, in this case, the help of the agency. The agency still continue to remain our best partner, absolutely, and we continue to be seated at the same table, thanks also to an agile methodology. Actually, we all are in a call from everyone from each home, but we are virtually the same themes. This helped us to promote a lot of transparency and optimize the execution time of our campaigns. To give you an example, we are able to change more than 100 ads in edge buying platform with a new creative message in less than 24 hours. Just to sum up, currently in the programmatic in-housing process, we are in a co-collaboration situation with the agency. Vodafone Peoples define the entire strategy and is responsible for the channel, while the agency is responsible for the running of campaigns.
Amazing. So it seems like all the partners are still participating in the programmatic buying in some one way or another. Perhaps the dynamic is changing a little bit. Stephanie, it would be great to also get your thoughts from a tech partner, what in-housing means to you, and how those relationships perhaps change.
Yeah, I think in-housing really starts with brands taking more ownership of the decisions and being more educated about how things are executed and how they align with their internal operations. I think one of the driver, we already heard, analytics and data is very relevant for brands to decide how to make more out of the marketing function, becoming more important for business strategy in general. As a tech provider, we try to enable all different business models. So we like to work with direct marketers, we like to work with agencies. What we're seeing is more like a hybrid approach to in-housing. So nobody really, or not nobody, but most brands are like starting off on a journey, but they do see some value in outsourcing certain services and in-housing other services. It's just this whole decision process is more intense, like it's more controlled right now. It used to be kind of like, we trust the agency, we hand everything over, and now there is more of a strategic approach. Which parts do we want to keep control of, such as procurement for like global contracts in the tech landscape, and which part of the workflow do we want to keep outsourced? A lot of times, automation intense tasks, or also tasks that require a lot of education, where agencies still have just like a broader pool of talent. What we see is that as brands are like starting to do the in-housing, as they like increase the budgets for their branding, not just like the budgets that marketing can spend, but the budgets that the marketing team has for employees, we're just getting more interesting use cases. We're talking about more customized setups, and we're kind of like departing from that one size fits all solution. We're getting more to like personalized plans, and I think that's a good thing for the brands that go on that journey. And it's an opportunity for players in the industry to support that innovation and that individual media buying, kind of like strategy building.
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's kind of in-housing. It seems to be all about finding that sweet spot between all these different players within our industry, and sort of finding a way that we can all sort of contribute towards making that a success. Obviously, as I mentioned, and David as well, we do hear about the increase between brands wanting to bring in-housing in-house. And I just wonder whether all the articles that are obviously available online and the numbers that are showing the increase of CMOs sort of thinking about bringing programmatic buying into their organizations is real, whether that trend it's something that we should sort of be looking into, or whether that's a little bit of a myth. And I would love Oliver to give his perspective on it.
Well, I think it's both. It's real in the sense, as we have heard, that advertisers want to take more control. As biddable media is more a dialogue with the consumer, you don't want to outsource that in the same way as you're outsourcing buying reach on TV. At the same time, there's a lot of a miss, because when people say in-housing, it sounds like the advertisers doing everything themselves. That is true for some direct-to-consumer brands where customer acquisition online is their core business process. But as we have heard, in many cases, agencies and other service partners still play a big role. And obviously, sometimes it's a little bit of vanity game. So it's great to stand on stage and say we are in-housing programmatic, but then when you do a LinkedIn search, for example, you say, well, apparently without any staff, because there are no programmatic or very few programmatic people in your business. But I think the role of the agency is evolving, and actually what we see that our programmatic revenue as fee revenue is still growing very much rather than shrinking. So I don't think it's a threat to the agency business as such, but it's evolving what we do for clients.
Amazing, thanks so much, Oliver. What about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think it is fair to say that there have been a lot of tests over the last couple of years. There has been a lot of momentum to, as I said, like try out what is sensible in terms of in-housing, where efficiency can be created. But I wouldn't say that this is like a continuous trend and we're just seeing like a shift and it's just a matter of time until everybody is in-house. As I said, I see more the hybrid model where you're kind of like taking the best of both. You're building up in-house capabilities, but you're also leveraging outside expertise is really gaining traction over the last couple of years. And I do think that there is, we already heard the direct-to-consumer brands being a bit of a differentiator. There's certain industries that are more likely to go strong on in-housing. We noticed, for example, something like the gaming industry, which is very heavy on data, has very like specific different attribution models based to not like standard like last click stuff, is more prone to doing like in-housing. We know that some cost sensitive industries are also maybe like more looking to just like keep expenses low. So I think there's not an answer that fits everyone, but there are some trends in the different verticals. Mm-hmm. And overall, I would say that the more you have a multi-channel marketing operation, the more you actually like want to harmonize stuff. And for execution across multiple geos and stuff, it's always useful to have support of on-the-ground specialists. So I think it's definitely like the global brands, obviously they are in-housing, but they're also leveraging there's expertise on the ground in the different markets to really be quick in execution. And at times like these, obviously, in-housing is a bit of a bigger risk because you still have all the costs running. Obviously, the agencies maybe don't like to hear that, but you have a bit more flexibility when you're outsourcing to also like cut costs according to business cycles. And it's something that that is relevant for industries that are very closely related to crisis.
For sure. I think also, I don't know whether you agree, but I think obviously brands, and I would love to hear from brands as well whether they agree. But I believe obviously as the spend in programmatic are increasing, brands wants to just understand what programmatic really means and how can they play a role and understand a little bit better what's happening with the dollars that they are spending. So like you said, Stephanie, and also Oliver, I think it's all about sort of gaining knowledge and understanding across the programmatic industry and sort of being able to make more educated decisions together with the other players. But with that trend, Oliver, I would love to hear, agencies used to play and still play a very important role when it comes to media buying, media planning, strategizing. And with that trend sort of increasing, I would love to kind of hear from your perspective, how agencies are reacting to it. Do they see the increasing in-housing as a threat or an opportunity perhaps?
If I'm honest, we see both, but I think if we do it well, it's more an opportunity. The first step is education, as you say. I think often the main motivation for in-housing is building understanding. And so the first thing that we do with clients is show them what it means, bring them into the building, let them sit next to the operators, go through the life cycle of a campaign to really understand what is happening. The second thing then that clients usually want to take control of or be much more involved is in the strategy, so that they understand, how do I define my audiences, how do I define my optimization strategy, how do I select my inventory, and how do I drive results. That is highly linked to analytics, so really understanding what's going on. If clients say it's a black box, often that is more the lack of education or the lack of analytical resource to really see what's possible, because we, for example, give clients access to the DSP reports, but they might be overwhelming at some stage. And I think then if clients decide that they want to take more of the hands-on execution in-house, we still can support them with training, with outside in. I think one of the main benefits that an agency can bring is that we work across industries, we work across markets, and we work across technology. So a lot of the learning and a lot of the mistakes are spread across many clients, and a good agency is really good in bringing that knowledge to their clients so that the risk and the waste for each client is much lower.
Amazing, thanks so much. So yeah, and again, it's all about sort of, I think, understanding and sort of really giving brands the opportunity to see, you know, the different roles that we are all playing, and that sometimes, you know, it's not, everything is not as straightforward as it may seem. So I think that visibility, it's quite key. And
maybe to build on that, what we've seen in search, for example, which is a couple of years ahead, we're seeing now more big advertisers outsourcing their search again after they have insourced it, but now they really know what good search looks like. They still keep that knowledge and that competence within their own organization, but they also understand what benefit exists, for example, as Stephanie says, having a local search specialist in every market so that your copy and your keyword selection is just much better. And that's what agencies can provide at much lower cost, because you can hire a 10% search specialist in a country rather than 100 or 0.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also it's that scale that you know, that is also important. Executing that on a global level efficiently may prove quite tricky. But that's a really nice segue, I suppose, to understanding really how brands are assessing bringing programmatic in-house. Like, what are the elements that brands are sort of reviewing before they decide to make that big move and bring programmatic operations into their organizations, whether this is the whole of programmatic or perhaps only parts of it. And I think it would be fantastic to get HelloFresh and Tash to tell a little bit more about that, perhaps.
Sure. I think it's totally depends on your level of expertise and the level of your organization and how you are looking at programmatic. If you are looking at programmatic from a very ROI point of view, then it makes really sense to kind of get it in-house and then use analytics and use data science algorithms and different sets of things you want to use. But if you're looking for more of a awareness or a brand, like, because programmatic is a way of buying, you're looking for the upper funnels like video, or you're looking for let's say doing OOH now or radio, then I think it makes more sense like to work with the agencies because they have more understanding of planning of video and planning of radio, where it is not more driven by ROI. So yeah, that's what I think.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Carlotta, what about you from Vodafone's perspective?
Carlotta, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, well, I think it's depend on how much the company wants to have a specific control on delivery, transparency, cost, results. So for our perspective, the most important thing to bring in a house was the strategy, and then the operation as the buying or the trafficking or the campaign management or something like this.
Amazing. Stephanie, would you have also thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the reasons that brands are using for the in-housing, a lot of times we also see transparency as a big topic. Mm-hmm. And once again, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do all buying in-house, but really getting more insights into the supply chain. We've heard it before in the round previously, which was talking about SPO and other things. Like, there's more demand about understanding really how the marketing budget that is being spent kind of like separates into different cost types. So you have the media costs, and the assumption always seems to be that all the money goes to the publishers. Now, unfortunately for our publishers, that's not entirely the case. There's cost going into data, into analytics. There's costs going into just like operational efficiency. And I think just like getting a better picture of that situation is what just Oliver also described, the process that the search industry went through. I think it is very useful to get a better understanding of the different components and of the work that is required to do this job. And then with that knowledge, you can once again possibly scope for ideal partners that can support you. But just from a more educated perspective and with more certainty that you're taking the right decisions based on the right data. And I think it's very difficult to build that knowledge without getting your hands dirty somewhere around the, like on the path. But also, I would say that it is a significant investment in terms of the hiring that you have to do. It's very difficult to start off in-house operations from scratch. It's very difficult to get the internal support for those teams to be really connected to the analytics team, to the other like tech teams and stuff. And we often see companies that start like drastically in-housing programmatic spending, suddenly realizing there's some digitalization like challenges that the business as a whole hasn't addressed. So suddenly the marketing department starts asking about certain data access questions, and they realize the data systems are not compatible to activate like CRM data for marketing purposes and stuff. So it can really kick off a whole transformation process that that affects different business units. So once you get started, like you often find out there's more to the challenge than you were thinking at first.
Yeah, definitely. And the piece around finding the right talent is in particular, I think, something that organizations often don't realize until they have to hire big teams, knowledgeable teams to run programmatic buying. And there is still a scarce of programmatic talent, I believe, in our industry. But also like the innovation, Stephanie, as you said, I think that's something that's quite important. Technology moves so fast and so quickly, and I think agencies obviously are so well positioned to assess all these different players and advise often on you know what those players are capable of, test them, and then obviously help brands with making those decisions. And Oliver, I'm also curious to understand, I'm sure that you are participating in a lot of conversations with brands and sort of helping them decide what parts to bring in-house and what not. What are your thoughts on sort of having brands assess all these different areas? How do they do it? How do they do it? And what questions do they come with to you when they go through that process? You're on mute as well.
Sorry. Very often, the discussion really starts with, we want to in-house because somehow I read in the press that that's what I should do. And then we try to bring the discussion back to say, so what is the role of display and video and native for your brand? And how can programmatic make that more effective? And what is needed to really drive that forward? And I think some of the topics we've heard this morning are very important, and that's where suddenly clients start to realize that some of the overheads that they're always complaining about when they look at agency fees are actually spent on things that are very expensive to do in-house. For example, contracts with tech vendors. Signing a contract with Google, really not fun. And data protection agreements, inventory sourcing, and knowing how to navigate supply. Usually agencies get you much better rates and they get you much better quality because they can do that at scale. But I think the biggest challenge that that in-house teams have is talent and talent development. So yes, it's very easy to get people excited to say, do you want to work in-house, be much closer to the marketing team, really push one brand forward? But what we say is it's very hard to keep those people on a career progression. They miss the knowledge that they get from their peers working on other clients, working on other markets, and they really sometimes struggle to see how in such much smaller team they can do the next move. And so I see that this will be a dynamic process, and that will be moving in and out as well. And then I think in the end of the day, we will see that agencies will be very good in defining the value proposition that they have, and clients will be much smarter in defining where do they want help, where do they want to do it themselves, where do they want to outsource. But when they outsource, it will not be a model anymore where they hand it over to someone and they don't understand what that someone does.
Amazing. And as we were chatting about that, we had a poll and we asked the audience, brands in particular, to tell us how do they go about in-housing or programmatic trading. And we've got the results. I'm going to read them out. 11% of brands outsource all programmatic buying. 38% keeps the strategy or brings the strategy and analytics in-house, but outsource the execution of programmatic trading. 40% undertakes trading execution in-house, but is looking or seeking best practice support from agency or consultancy. So that's the highest out of all the votes. And then 11% undertakes all programmatic buying in-house without any external help. So just wanted to share those results with you as well. And with the changing of dynamics and how all the different players, so brands and agencies and tech partners start to interact with each other, I wonder what does that mean for the future of the agency and the advertiser relationship? Tash, would you be able to speak to that, please?
Sure. I think agencies are always, ones who innovate and ones who kind of come up with new solutions on board for the advertisers. So I think they will be one of them. So the relationship is going to be really strong. But as you just said, the poll you saw, there's an 11% raise, like now people are doing everything in-house without taking any external help. If you ask me, like 2 years back, that was 0. Okay, now it's 11% and it's going more up and up like in the recent times. Why is that in cases that because, right now most of the companies are centralizing their programmatic and they have a lot of internal analytics helps. And programmatic is not something which, you need a lot of brand awareness, which agencies kind of have like a say on it, where how many frequency, how many reach, because when you look at programmatic, it's mostly on the lower funnel, which is like performance, where it doesn't matter where it is reach or where it is performance or where it is brand safety. It is obviously likability and suitability of a brand, but usually it's a really, really less combination. But I think more and more advertisers to reach at an advanced level, they would have to go via agency. They would have to go via reseller because they would need hand holding. So I think the relationship will stay strong. It's a very win-win situation, but it would be never like 100%. So as like Oliver also said, that how well they do it, that would be also a variable to see that how well they kind of help advertisers to build them up and what kind of relationship they build over the years.
Amazing. Oliver, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just say brand safety and fraud is also very important on the lower funnel. And I don't think programmatic is lower funnel only. Actually, I see some of the biggest value opportunities in the upper funnel when it comes to things like viewability, when it comes to exposure duration or video completion, because machines can optimize that better than humans. But it's true, the analytics part is really important. And I think the more an advertiser has own data and has analytics that goes beyond media analytics, the more that needs to be integrated. And if it is the old agency model where you send a brief to the agency and you get a PowerPoint back that you might not even understand, that doesn't work. So that's why we see companies like Vodafone or HelloFresh, which are very dynamic, very competitive environments, and where there's a lot of data. For them, there's a different setup that is ideal versus let's say, an automotive manufacturer or FMCG. And the agencies, I think, historically have been very good in adapting to changing client requests and figuring out a way how they can add value.
Amazing. And as we are talking about that relationship between agencies and brands and sort of how that's changing and evolving, I'm also interested to hear whether that shift in dynamics and how is that shift in dynamics really affecting relationships between not only agencies and brands, but also brands and tech partners. And I'm wondering whether Lars could speak to that and give his perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the absence of intermediaries has allowed the tech partners to have a direct contact with the brand, giving to them an extra chance to offer its own technology before they pass it typically through the agency review. Obviously, the relationship with the tech giants like Google or Facebook, for example, were present even before. But thanks to the in-housing process, we as Vodafone have now the right people and the right resource, also budgets, to better understand what technology can work best for our needs, for the needs of Vodafone. Because as an internal employer, we know very well the full chain of value in Vodafone, how customers engage on each step of the onboarding process, for example. Just to give two examples and how the relationship with the partner changed. We started working with a startup based in Poland, just was a LinkedIn contact, that now allow us to do some parts of the marketing automation process. As well as we detected a problem regarding how leads are managed with different publishers. And with understanding well the problem, we asked to our ET department to develop some APIs, and then we give this API to tech partners and different publishers. For example, new kind of publisher that appeared these years, like conversational messaging, for example. We give them this API for lead generation and with the capacity to have a real-time quality check of the leads.
Stephanie, how do you sort of what are your thoughts on that change in dynamic?
Yeah, I think there are like two perspectives on this matter. I think one is that some of the demands that initially would probably hit an agency are now hitting technology partners, and we've tried to respond to that by, for example, like helping our customers like hedge their risk by providing outcome-based buying products, which normally that risk would be taken by an agency. And it's much easier when you're a big buyer and you know a lot of what's going on in the market to kind of like do these predictions. But as a platform, obviously, we have also access to a lot of relevant data. So we're trying to make access to these kind of tools like more democratized and like not dependent on your budget that you're spending. And I think another thing that we're seeing is that as brands are taking more control of the partnerships they're having, there's obviously a lot more sets of partnerships that get put on our table. So an agency might consolidate between, 5 different scenarios that they're recommending to their clients, but brands themselves might come up with a much bigger diversity in combining certain partners. So we're very much focusing also on integrating all the necessary partners into like an open ecosystem. So one of the, I think the important trends here is if you're not one of the walled gardens, you're really trying to also allow for these connections to be open, to bring data providers on your platform, to allow for specialists in analytics to execute on your platform and kind of like to really empower that choice that a brand has made. And I think for us, it's a great opportunity to get more diversity of partners that we're working with, and also to expand our knowledge about all the different products they're having and how they're adding value to their clients.
Absolutely, and I can also add to this from my perspective. Obviously, working for a technology company that isn't a walled garden, and like you said, the ability for us being open and having sort of a marketplace approach gives brands the opportunity to utilize various technologies offering out there, test them, and I do think that agencies play an important role in helping often sort of shed a little bit of light in terms of what can work best for brands based on the experience they do have, because they've been obviously around for a very long time and they have teams dedicated often to help us sort of tailor best solutions. I think we are quite close to the end, and I think we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, and I've got one last question which I think will nicely sort of summarize this session, and I would love to hear from all of you. If you had an advice for a brand, so what do brands need to do to make in-housing more successful? If there is one thing you would change or do differently, what would that be? Let's start with Carlotta.
Well, I think the successful depend on 2 key factors, people and technology. You have to collaborate with the best technology in your local market, not just the global, but your local market, and to hire the good mix of people that contaminate each other's. So you can create a very good mix in terms of teams. And if I have to change something, probably is that I will not separate the digital performance from digital brand. And I would create a global digital hub that includes digital sales, digital performance, digital brand, etc.
Amazing. Laird?
Yeah, for me, the most important thing absolutely is to hire the right people. This is very, very important because it's in-housing programming, not just hiring through campaign managers. After after a year, you will realize that it was better with the agency. So hiring the right people is very important. In-housing, programmatic, but others tech platforms means that you are getting in your company a lot of data, a lot of information that you also have to get help from other departments that you have to unify this data internally for marketing, for sales, for delivery, for every department. It's very, very important. So you have to build also an infrastructure that's help to optimize to buying side, off-site, but also get a lot of insight for the on-site, but also for other departments.
Tash?
I think what would I like to change is that I want to change this phenomena of programmatic just performance and display and native. Actually, one thing if I want to change is that, I want to change that programmatic is the way of buying. It's more data driven. You can buy like say CTV, OTTs, radio and OOH. So I think if I could change, I would change this thing that when you're moving in-house, also think about other upper funnel channels, not just like lower funnel display and native.
Definitely. And Oliver?
Yes, I think the success really is depending on openness and willingness to learn. And I think then it's a journey. And what we see is now very different models, how we work with clients. It's also openness on both sides. So sometimes agency people are embedded with client teams. We also have clients that embed their people with our teams. And I think in that relationship, then there's a constant shift of who does what based on what are the needs and how they evolve. But one very important thing is make sure that you get outside in, that you really are not cut off from the developments on the technology side, on the marketplace, new risks coming, because it's very easy to be in your little in-house silo and believe you're doing an amazing job, but you're doing an amazing job versus a year ago, but not versus the industry that has moved on.
Exactly. And Stephanie?
Yeah, I would say the thing about like hiring the best or the right people is super crucial, and also not just hiring them, but having a mid-long-term plan in place. We've heard before that a lot of times, like, this seems like a great opportunity. 1-2 years in, people are starting to ask questions about progression, opportunities and stuff. So also like think about how you can get this top talent like to stay in your company for more than the short term. And on the other hand, I think once you're working more directly with partners, it requires a different level of openness. So you have to be a bit more forthcoming about discussing challenges that you're having, because that's the best way to resolve them. So it's not necessarily something that comes natural to a lot of companies to go to partners and say, like, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, but that's really the most effective way to resolve issues. And I think it's a bit of a mindset change a lot of times compared to previous ways of working with partners.
Amazing, thank you so much. And so just to sort of sum up, I think that what I'm hearing and the sort of main takeaways of today's in-housing sessions are definitely around the fact that there is no one size fits all. There are certainly lots of various different approaches that a brand can take, but I think the most important thing is the openness and conversations that Oliver mentioned, hiring the right people, sort of being innovative, seeking advice from agencies and tech partners, coming to the table together. And obviously it's important not to forget about the importance of data that can help us buy smarter, certainly. Thank you so much for the panel and participating and giving all your thoughts and sharing your experience with us today. David, over to you.